Alright, hello everyone, Silver Kyle, and today I'm going to be going over my thoughts and impressions on the Nintendo Switch. Now, I've had this system for about 2 weeks now, and I feel that I can confidently say if I like or don't like the system. So do I like it? Yes, absolutely. I love the Switch so much more than I thought I would. I feel like a kid again with this. Like, I feel that excited, like a kid on Christmas Day when I'm playing this system. And I haven't felt this excited for a system in well over 15 years. I feel good. I feel at home. I feel safe. I feel nostalgic. Part of it is because it's Nintendo, which has always been part of my childhood as a gamer. And I'm finally happy, really happy with a Nintendo product in terms as a console. Even as a handheld, I'm that much more happy because I always felt that the 3DS and the DS were the weaker counterparts to the PlayStation Portable and the Vita. Those were the more powerful systems, but also they were much more comfortable. And for me, comfortableness is much more important. And also the Vita and the PSP both look better. So as a handheld and as a console, I'm very happy because the Wii U and Wii as consoles, I really didn't like the games I liked, but not the systems themselves. So I will not fanboy completely about the Switch because I still will be fair and I will say that it is not a perfect console. There are still a lot of negatives with it, but it is on the way on being much better than what Nintendo has done in the last little while, in my opinion anyway. So I'll go with the negatives first and then I'll bring up the positives. So, is the Nintendo Switch for everyone? No, certainly not. I think that there are certain groups that it is perfect for, certain groups that it's good for, certain groups that it's okay for, and then just groups that it is not meant for. If you are really into ultra high graphics, very powerful hardware, 4K gaming, that kind of stuff, yeah, Switch probably isn't your cup of tea. Then again, consoles probably aren't your cup of tea either. You should probably be playing things on the PC. But yeah, power and graphics and 4K, not the Switch. If you're into online gaming, we're not sure yet. There is still friend codes with numbers, which is just ridiculous. There's also, okay, so this is the bare bones controller here. When you attach the Joy-Cons, it's the full controller, but they're in the handheld at the moment. I will show you this afterwards. But there's no place to have a mic on this. Gaming online without a mic still. 2017, Nintendo. Get your act together. Yeah, that is a negative. And we also don't know how well the servers are going to be. That really, in the fall, that's when they're going to start the subscription-based servers, just like PlayStation Plus and Xbox Live, and that starts in the fall, so we don't really know 100% about that. The Virtual Console isn't up yet either, but that's going to come in time. That's okay. It's just we don't really know how the servers are going to be. Hopefully they're good, but we don't know. If you're into third-party games, well, Rockstar is not with the Switch at the moment, so they're the biggest one that is missing. Everybody else is kind of at least dipping their feet into the Switch, but it'll depend on how well the system does itself and how well those third-party games sell. We could end up with another Wii U in terms that they support it at the beginning, and then because nobody buys their games, they leave. The Switch is also, there is Xbox One and Xbox Scorpio, PlayStation Pro, and PlayStation 4. So the Pro and Scorpio are much more powerful, but they're also, basically if you get a PlayStation game, you can play it on the Pro and the PlayStation 4. So that's good, because that means that they also have the weaker counterparts, which is kind of what the Switch is, because it is still weaker than the Xbox One and the PlayStation 4, stronger than the Wii U, but that's not saying a lot. So that is good, and also the Switch, developers have said that it's easy to work with the Switch, which is also good. So we want it to be easy to work with, but we also need people to buy the third-party games that they put out for the Switch. That's iffy. So if that's the case, I would maybe wait to see if you want to switch, because if third-party games mean a lot to you, don't know. Now, in terms of if you don't like handhelds, that's not necessarily a negative. If you don't like handhelds, it's not a negative, but it's not an additional positive, which is what kind of the Switch is. It's handheld and console at the same time. So if you just really want to play as the console, you don't have that as a positive. And then the other big negative for me is the docking system itself. When you want to charge it, or if you want to just play on as a console, you have to put it into the dock, which is a very small thing, which I'm fine with the size, but it's very light and feels cheap. So it feels like if you put it in incorrectly, you could scratch the screen, which would just be horrible. So that to me, that's the biggest problem, because right now I'm being very careful, but I don't want to ever get to the point where I'm just like, in a year from now, just forget and I just put it in and it's like, crap, I just, damaged the screen. That is a negative to it. Probably the biggest negative, in my opinion, for myself, for the Nintendo Switch. That's pretty much the negatives about the system that I've encountered or that I've thought of. In terms of positives, I'll first start off by saying that I was a very strong supporter of the Wii U. Not for the hardware, but for the games. I really felt that the exclusives for the Wii U were excellent, were very, very good. As a system, I was like, the gamepad is kind of useless. There's only really 3 games that I can think of that really used it. One of them being Nintendo Land, which is one of the best games in terms of local multiplayer that used the gamepad. One of the best games ever for local multiplayer, if you ask me. It's just so much fun with the gamepad. Zombie U was another game that used the gamepad, and then years down the road, on the last legs of the Wii U, they decided to launch Star Fox Zero, which is an atrocity of a game in terms of controls. You are forced to look at the gamepad instead of your screen, and you have to use motion control. That's not how I want to be playing a game. This is not fun to me. The other thing too is like, why did they have that then? Why didn't they have that at the beginning when they were trying to sell the gamepad? Like, why would we want? I think it was like it cost $150 of the Wii U for this to be there. If they just gave us a regular controller, which would have been very cheap, you could have had $150 off the Wii U right from the get-go, and I think a lot more people would have bought the system itself because of that. Because it would have been so much more cheaper, and there wouldn't have been this weird thing that nobody uses. Bad ideas from Nintendo for making the gamepad and then never using it. So all these Wii U's are out there, and they have this big thing that cost them, apparently Nintendo, $150 to have, and you're not using it. Stupid move on Nintendo's part. Switch is like the idea. Switch, I feel, is like the idea of everything from Nintendo. And I'll get to that in a second. So, as a handheld, it is so much more powerful than the Vita, so much more better looking the Vita. And this is the LED original Vita that came out. So eventually when they started remaking Vitas, they weren't looking as good because I think they were using an LCD screen, but the original LED screen is this one, and this looks better. It is much newer, but yeah, it's fantastic. It is much bigger than the Vita as well, but it's kind of comparable in terms of like the feel to it, whereas the 3DS, much more different. And I prefer, the problem with the 3DS is that it cramps up my hand because it's not big enough, or I don't know, but it just cramps up my hand. The other thing is that the analog, you only have one analog on the regular 3DS XL. There is like this kind of weird analog on the new 3DS XL, but the analog doesn't stick out, so it's just kind of there. Vita is a little bit better, much better actually, because it does stick out, and they do have the other analog stick as well. And then you have the Switch, and it actually sticks out a lot more, as you can see. Maybe I can put that like that. It sticks out a lot more, much bigger as well. So it just feels like a regular controller in those terms. As a handheld, freaking awesome. It is very comparable to the Wii U gamepad. As you can see, it's like almost identical. They're just a little bit, this one's like thicker. And as you can see, this is very flat and straight. Whereas the gamepad has this, which is more ergonomic, but it's actually not as comfortable as the Switch, in my opinion anyway. As a handheld, this is exactly how I play it, but you can take them off and put them as a regular controller. But I just like being able to use the screen, like move around my screen when I'm playing. But you could just have it like this, like being held up so you could play. And you could use these. Like this, put it into the controller. And boom, there you're good to go. But like I said, as a handheld, I kind of keep it as the whole thing. When I'm playing on console, I play half the time like this with the controller. It is much better than I originally thought it was. When I first held this, I was like, oh god, I don't like the controller at all. And I thought it was going to be like another regular Nintendo system for the last little while. Because of this thing. Like, it's just in the way for where your hands want to be. Like, I want to be able to fully hold this grip, and I can't do that because of this. Whereas with the Xbox One, I can put my hand completely around it and there's nothing stopping me there. Strangely enough, though, I thought that this was a very small controller. It's quite comparable to the Xbox One. I mean, it's not exactly like the Xbox One is still bigger, but it's still relatively comparable and much more comfortable than I originally thought. I'm playing it like half the time like this, and I'm super comfortable. And if I want to get even more comfortable, and I wish that the Switch would have, or Nintendo would have marketed this a lot more, you take them out, you have them like this, and you can play much more leisurely. I've played like this before. Like I'm just playing around like this, just because I can. But most of the time I lean back, and I just play however I want, and it's just so much more comfortable for my wrists because I'm not like this. Yeah, I can just lean back and play like this, but I can't really do this. Like I can't. I am so comfortable right now because there's nothing holding it that like the Wii Mote and the nunchuck. It was very similar, but not the same because for one, you didn't have another analog stick with the Wii Mote and nunchuck. You only had one analog stick, and you also were attached with the cord. This is not like that. It feels like it's the exact same, everything you would need in a regular controller, all in here. You can also add these things, which basically make it a little bit bigger. And also, if you want, you can use these as a regular controller to play, for example, Mario Kart. So you pass this to another person. You only have one controller. Pass this to another person. They have everything that they would need to play Mario Kart. It would have everything that they need to play if there's a new Super Mario Bros. That comes out for the Switch. You have everything that you need with just, for 2 players to play. Awesome. I just absolutely love the controls of this. Very comfortable. And like this, it's so much easier on your wrists. And I don't know why I didn't understand why they didn't. I was talking to my dad because I wanted to show him the Switch, and he thought it was a pretty cool thing. And I was like, why wouldn't they like market this? And he's like, well, they probably don't want to say, oh look, it won't hurt your wrists as much, because that would imply that gaming does hurt your wrists. They don't want to go down that. I was like, yeah, that's fair. But for me personally, this is much easier on my wrists. Obviously, it could be different with yourself, but for me, much easier to being able to play like this with my wrists. So that's the controller, which I think is just absolutely fantastic. And just so many different ways to play. The other thing too is that because it's a handheld, eventually when the 3DS is done, that means that for one, Virtual Console is going to be on this. We can play 64 games. Potentially, I've heard that we might be able to play GameCube games on handheld as well, which is just insane. That's not confirmed yet, though, I don't think, so don't quote me on that one. But Virtual Console, we're going to be able to play that. Any game that comes out on the Switch is going to be able to console and handheld, which means that, for example, when they had to split up Nintendo developers, okay, half of them working on the console games, half of them working on handheld. Not the same anymore. They're all working for the Switch, which means we could get double the amount of games because they're all going to be working together. And also, that means games that were just on handhelds can now be on console. Pokemon is the biggest one that I can think of. So you're going to be able to play Pokemon on a console made by the same people that have always made Pokemon, because there's not going to be any other handheld out there. That is crazy. If you're not into Pokemon, that's fine. But for people that are, that is huge. And it's also huge for like how I think that is going to do really good numbers for the Switch. In terms of games, like I said, there's only really one game out there at the moment, which is The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild. It is quite possibly a system seller because there are other games that are coming out. There is Splatoon 2, Mario Odyssey, Xenoblade Chronicles 2. There's also smaller games, Fire Emblem Warriors, Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, and Skyrim, which, Skyrim and Mario Kart you can play in other systems, but it is coming to the Switch, and that's a pretty big first year for the Switch that we know of. E3 is still around the corner, so there might be other games coming too. I'm really excited to see what else is going to come out for the Switch. Zelda is amazing. I will talk about this in another video soon. But yeah, amazing. Almost worth the system itself if you don't already have the Wii U, because you can pick it up there. So that's pretty much... the other thing too is that third-party games, I'm considering getting Yooka-Laylee and Stardew Valley on the Switch if they get physical releases. Right now they do have physical releases for PS4 and Xbox One. They have confirmed that those 2 games, Yooka-Laylee and Stardew Valley, are coming to the Switch. And if they get physical releases, I think I'm going to get them because I want more games on the Switch. I'm seriously thinking of making more games third party on the Switch. I'm even thinking of triple dipping into Skyrim because playing that as a handheld would just be insane. So, as you can tell, I'm very happy with the Switch. Let me know in the comments below if you have a Switch, what your thoughts are on it. And if you don't have a Switch, let me know what your comments are as well. If you have any questions, let me know and I will try my best to answer them as well. So there you have it. Thank you all for watching. You've been bearded in.
Beardage.